Location: Mocha City. Time: 25th of March 2021. The National Resistance in the Western Coast of Yemen announces the declaration of its political office.
نحن نطلق مشروعنا اليوم السياسي هذا إيمانا بالشرعية الدستورية وبالدستور اليمني، ومن حقنا أن نكون جزء سياسي في هذا الوطن ضمن الشرعية. نحن لسنا بديلا لأحد ولسنا ضد الشرعية، ولكننا نريد أن نكون جزءا من الشرعية، جزءا فاعل في مواجهة العدوان الحوثي، في معركتنا الكبيرة لاستعادة جمهوريتنا واستعادة مؤسساتنا.
The announcement raises a lot of controversy and questions at the local and regional level. What are the motives for declaring the political office? What is the impact of the announcements on the Yemeni scene? To answer the two questions, we must first know the first details about the identity of the National Resistance Forces in the Western Coast and informing the weight of its achievement on the local arena. The first flash, foundation and formation. After the former president, leader Ali Abdullah Saleh, ignited the uprising of the 2nd of December 2017 against the Houthi militia from Athaniya in Sana'a and his companion Professor Arif Azzouka, Secretary General of the GBC, then the Brigadier General Tariq Saleh decided to change the course of the battle. And after 36 days, his first appearance came from Shabwa in January 2018 as a thunderbolt against the leadership of the Houthi militia. Then he opened reception training camp for the National Resistance Forces, the Republic Guards, in Bir Ahmed camp in Aden Governorate. Then the appearance of the Brigadier General Tariq Saleh in Mocha in mid-April 2018 with large military forces in contest of the battle of the Yemeni people and extension of the 2nd of December uprising. The National Resistance launched its military operations from Makkah Crossroad in Mauza district's Taiz Governorate. Within a national lineup, the joint forces includes Republic Guards, Al-Amalika and Tihama brigades to retake the western coast from the Houthi militia, which controls more than 400 kilometers along in Yemeni coast on the Red Sea. Both of these vast coastal areas and the task have enabled the Houthi militia to achieve many of the military and political gains. The militia's scope are still at the high of its power and can maneuver through these coastal areas that provide them with tons of smuggled weapons from Iran, in addition to exploiting the coast as a political paper that used to put pressure on the international community by targeting the global shipping route in the Red Sea. While Al-Amalika brigades, with the support of the coalition, had liberated the areas on coastal strips from Aden to Dubab, Mocha and the city of Al-Khouqa, but large parts of these districts are still in the hands of the Houthi militia. The National Resistance, in coordination with the coalition, has been designated Khalid ibn al-Walid camp and Mocha Crossroad in Mauza district west of Taiz as the scene of the first operations. In the morning of the 19th of April 2018, the National Resistance Forces set out from the areas of Mawza Mocha Crossroad east of the city of Mocha in the Sacred Battle, in the belief of the honorable people in the need to liberate the western coast and to tighten the noose of the Houthi priesthood militia. The established military plan required that the air forces of the Arab coalition launch dozens of raids, reinforced by intense artillery support and targeting Houthi positions in preparation for the progress that would be achieved. At the same time, and according to the approved military plan, the anti-mine teams will ensure finding safe loopholes for the attacking barons in order to initiate the attack of the forces according to the task assigned to them. The priority is to control hills and high mountains as well as hills controlled by the enemy in a primitive step to secure the joint forces broke through the coastline and riding enemy militias on sudden operations and what is known as a military operations, breaking the enemy's bone and immobilize his moves. The operation ended peacefully and resulted in rapid victories that led to the rapid fall of the Houthi militia sites at the hands of the heroes of the joint forces as a result of the sudden and very carefully thought out military attack. The self-cutting of the enemy tactic represented by the successive and rapid offensive had a clear effect in the early elimination of all the militia's desperate attempts to regain what it had lost. Dozens of kilometers were falling apart in front of the successive attack of the heroes of the joint forces, which led the militias to lose control over the course of the battle despite their possessions of two of the largest and most qualified camps, which were along the former Yemeni army on the west coast, such as Al Omari camp in Dubab and Khalid ibn al-Walid camp in Mocha. However, the continuous rush of the heroes of the joint forces did not give the militia any opportunity to rearrange its ranks to regain the vast areas that it lost, in addition to exposing its common reinforcements coming from Al-Barh in Taz and Al-Udayn in Ib. Those who escaped from the coalition airstrikes fell captive in the hands of the joint forces. "18 days after the start of the battle, the joint forces had successfully completed the mission, which culminated in liberating Mocha Crossroad and the entire mountains ranks overlooking it. And by doing so, Al Omari camp and mountains in Dubab were liberated by Al-Amalika forces as well as Mawza and Al-Waziyah district. The Mocha district and the southeastern suburbs of Al-Khoukhas city were fully secured, which were suffering from the militia's infiltrations. 8th of May, the Raid Special Battalion of the 1st Brigade of the Republic Guards and troops from Al-Amalika carried out a successful detour in the depth of the militia sites and the offensive forces beyond the pockets of the militia stations in the mountains ranks surrounding Khalid camp and arrived at Mocha Crossroads and managed to secure it. Such a terrible setback to the main supply artillery that the militia relies on to support its fires in the camps of Al Omari and Khalid and the city of Mocha. Its fall meant that the militia lost the ability to defend its advanced positions in these areas. Therefore, the militia Houthi rushed to flee from their positions in Al Omari camp in Dubab and reached to their positions in the depth of Al Waziyah district. After a painful and a surprise blow like this, the militia collapsed and retreated under the accelerated progress in favor of Al-Amalika strike forces towards the depth east to complete and control over the districts of Al-Waziyah and Mawza and liberate Mocha district completely. By the 10th of May, the joint forces had completed the achievement of the first phase, during which the heroes liberated 4 directorates in Taiz, Dubab, Al-Waziyah, Mocha and Mawza, which means that the joint forces have liberated an area of 145 kilometers along the coastal strip, to which is added a distance of 40 kilometers east to the administrative boundaries of Al-Hujariyah and Maqbana directorates. The size of the liberated areas within 20 days was sufficient to prove that the military operation had achieved a quick and overwhelming victory. Upset the balance of the battle and revealed the fragility of the militias in front of the joint resistance soldiers. As a result of these resounding victories, the spirits of the fighters eager for victory have risen to begin the second stage in the hope of liberating what remained on the west coast lands. And the next target now is Hodeidah. When the operations ended on the southern axis of the western coast, the battles moved to the northern axis of Hodeidah Governorate. The National Resistance began the battles on the 11th of May from Al-Qataba area, about 8 kilometers north of Al-Khoukhah, the first district of Hodeidah Governorate.
بنادق حان وقت الرد يحرق من حرق عب المحازق بالذخاير لتجهيز الفريق جيش الطوارق ليشق البحر لما ينطلق وينقذ الغارق ولا يخشى المنايا في الطريق
الكهنوت الحجمه عرف قيمته امام الشعب اليمني وامام العالم. عندنا زاد ويوصل كذا لغايه القوم قدامهم ملعونه من تشوفها جات الضباط والعسكر يبون اذا طار عهدا علينا والوفاء والعهد متغير الحوثي الغدار ما نخضع القانون عهد شيء الموت عند العهد والغبر والثار عند الرجال حيشام يخلون بالدم نفتيك يا يمن الان منطلقين ان شاء الله الى جبهه الحديده.
Then the military operations continued and the defenses of the militias and their regions were fallen apart, although resorting to its preferred option goal of planting thousands of mines and dozens of snipers in an attempt to impede the progress of the joint forces, but higher training for engineering teams, competent, demanding and secret anti-sniping in the 1st Brigade of the Republic Guards were the lookout to thwart all the miserable attempts of the militia.
إذا كثرت الزوامل كثرت الأرامل وها هي جثث ميليشيات الحوثي تنتثر في كل تبة وساحل إثناء تلقيها ضربات موجعة من أبطال حراس الجمهورية وإخوانهم في القوات المشتركة. وها ميليشيات الحوثي على بعد أمتار تلوذ بالفرار أثناء محاولتها التسلل ولكن تلقت ضربات موجعة ونحن لهم بالمرصاد وبالروح بالدم نفديك يا يمن بالروح بالدم نفديك يا يمن.
At that time, the fall of the regions and villages in Hodeidah took place in the midst of overwhelming joy among the people of the liberated areas. The entire districts of Al-Khoukhah and Hais and large parts of Al-Tuhaita and Beit al-Faqih districts were liberated, and by the 7th of June, the joint forces had reached the outskirts of Hodeidah. Then began the international movements, which were concerned about the rapid advancement of the joint forces, and with them began the international pressure on the joint forces, asking them to stop their progress and their flimsy humanitarian justifications, as the claimants have no other concern than devoting efforts to recover the Houthi and giving him a time space that enables him to organize his ranks and regain his breath. Indeed, a ceasefire was imposed and this truce took place between the Houthi militia and the joint forces mediated by the United Nations. For its part, the joint forces considered the truce as last opportunity for the militias to tend to peace and retreat from their sinister turn, while the militias considered it a good opportunity for mobilization, digging trenches and planting explosive devices and mines. 19th of June, the League al-Masih Yemeni government and the coalition forces announced the launch of the Golden Eagle operation with the aim of liberating the city of Hodeidah, as a step after which the joint resistance forces would resume their attack on the co-militias. On the 7th of July, the resistance forces took control of the entire Tuhaita district and penetrated deep into Beit al-Faqih district up to the outskirts of a Drahimi strategic district in the city of Hodeidah. 12th of August 2018, the Joint Resistance Forces took control of the center of Al-Durahimi district and extended their control over parts of the vital Hodeidah airport, which is only 13 kilometers away from the strategic port of Hodeidah, which is the military achievement with which the Houthi militia is in real trouble. The fall of the airport and port of Hodeidah means that it will receive a severe blow that may cause the collapse of the military operations of the Houthi militia and deprive them of the revenues estimated at $25 million per month. The situation came under control. All these areas liberated by the hands of the National Resistance Forces, which now control about 80% of the total Hodeidah governorate, in addition to their advance towards the depth of the city, while the militia levels increase as suffocation and retreat. And as the militia became more suffocated, so did the scenarios of American and British pressure across the United Nations that did not hesitate to express their growing concern and bias about the new course of the Hodeidah battles. It is as if through repeated appeals to ride a cruiser horse in repeated pressure on the coalition countries and the legitimacy government to force the two sides to stop battles and save the torpedoing project. As a result of the international pressure repeated, it was announced a new round of talks in December in the Swedish capital and is prompting Houthi militia to expedite sending a political delegation in the hope of achieving political gains of their exit from the impasse military crisis situation in Hodeidah, which is getting worse day after day. The United Nations envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, presented a proposal solution map in preparation for reaching the signing of a political peace agreement. Its most prominent item is to stop the military operations in the city of Hodeidah and to hand over to neutral security forces and observers chosen by the United Nations itself. 13th of December. The delegation of the legitimate government and the Houthi corps signed a draft of the fictitious agreement, which was later found to have served the Houthis and reproduced the militias and legalized their presence in the city of Hodeidah. The Stockholm Agreement was a step on the side of the joint forces on the west coast, which offered hundreds of martyrs in order to destroy the hateful coup project. But the complicity of the innocent internationalist position contributed to restore this destructive project. The dream of resorting the state and republic has become dependent on unjust political agreements that impose, through their false stances, the draft of the dynasty of Yemenis and marginalize the sacrifices of the republic's heroes on the different fronts of the nation seeking to break the line. Years passed and the weak collapsed party in Hodeidah became stronger because of the immunity granted to it in the Sweden agreement. And today here are the coup militia displayed on the outskirts of Marib city, eager to achieve a major military victory that will enable them to enter a new bombed political agreement project that is more dangerous than Stockholm, especially with the political orientation of the new American administration in the Middle East, with the aim of strengthening the Iranian project in the Middle East. The scene is complete and the black peace that Biden wants to impose on Yemen is evident, and it became evident more than ever with the Houthi attack on Marib, leaving nothing left for its computation except for the militia's victory in the Battle of Marib, until a new peace agreement is forged in which the Houthis will rule the Yemeni scene and destroy the Republican project. These indicators and the Germs features of looming on the orbits of the national scene push the leadership of the national resistance in the West Coast to declare a political office supports national political positions. and strengthens the legitimate government's positions in all future international agreements, and also allows the legitimate right of all national forces with the necessity of political participation based on principle of pluralism in the making of faithful decisions, as well as ensuring the aspiration of Yemen and its Republican project.
تعلن المقاومة الوطنية اليوم ومن مدينة المخا بوابة النصر والتحرير إشهار مكتبها السياسي التزاما منها بالعمل على إعادة الاحتكام لصناديق الاقتراع والتداول السلمي للسلطة.
In March 2021, the National Resistance Forces announced the declaration of its political office in accordance with a clear national vision that derives its legitimacy from the Yemeni constitution, and as it serves the only national project of getting rid of the Houthi coup within the framework of greater ambition aimed at restoring the republic and protecting the homeland and the rule of its political decision out of the feudality of the priestly Houthi. During the publicity ceremony, the speech of the head of the political office of the National Resistance, Brigadier General Tariq Saleh, summarized the national role entrusted with forming the political office and clarified the paths and determinants from which the political office would proceed through its legitimate choices.
والمعركة ليست معركة عسكرية فقط، فنحن بحاجة للسياسي والاقتصادي والجانب الاجتماعي والجانب القبلي والجانب التوعوي والجانب الديني للحفاظ على هويتنا اليمنية وعقيدتنا الصحيحة. دعت المملكة العربية السعودية ممثلة بوزارة الخارجية وهي من يقود التحالف العربي إلى مبادرة سلام. نحن مع أي سلام عادل وشامل يحقق الأمن والاستقرار، يحفظ دماء اليمنيين، يعيد لهم كرامتهم، يعيد النازحين أمثالنا وآخرين إلى مساكنهم إلى بيوتهم آمنين مطمئنين. لهم حق أن يختاروا من يحكمهم، لا أن تأتي تحكمنا عبر الخرافات، خرافة الولاية والدجل بعيدا عن صناديق الاقتراع. نحن مع صناديق الاقتراع. أكرر أننا لسنا بديلا لأحد، ولكننا امتداد خاصة في المقاومة الوطنية لثورة 2 ديسمبر التي قادها الزعيم ورفيقه الأمين، وضحوا بدمائهم من أجل الكرامة والحرية والحفاظ على هذه المكتسبات. نحن امتداد لهذا التوجه وملتزمين بكل وصايا الزعيم، ومن أهمها المصالحة الوطنية. لذلك نحن نمد أيدينا لمختلف القوى السياسية وللشرعية، وندعو لكل مصالحة وطنية واصطفاف وطني حقيقي لمواجهة المشروع الكهنوتي المدعوم إيرانيا. نؤكد من خلالكم أن النضال مستمر، وأن السياسة في جانب والبندقية في جانب. لن نضع بنادقنا إلا حتى يتحقق بإذن الله النصر والسلام العادل والشامل لكل اليمنيين. نشكر كل المقاتلين في الجبهات في القوات المشتركة من أبطال العمالقة أخوتنا وأحرار تهامة، ونشكر أبناء تهامة كلهم الذين كانوا الحاضنة والراعية لنا منذ وصولنا ولكل القوات المشتركة. نقدم لهم الشكر الجزيل.
Political action is no longer the preserve of anyone, but has become an inevitable necessity guaranteed to prominent national forces that united Republican forces from the north and south of the homeland on the west coast. The exception of the United reflected the extent of these national forces' faith in the justice of their cause aimed to restoring the republic and undermining the bonds of the intruder dynastic project. And it definitely will be. Whoever regains 250 kilometers of the homeland's territories, there is no doubt that he will travel longer and wider distances politically to restore the state and restore the Yemeni identity, despite the disingenuous international and internationalist position.